Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is March 13. Today, as we continue in our daily Bible reading about how the Israelite nation has crossed the Jordan River on dry ground, they've had some great military conquests at the hand of God. God has demonstrated great miraculous power and great provision for this people, just as he always promised he would. And now the enemy, for the most part, has been driven out of the major part of the land of Canaan. And the time comes in the reading today for the land to be proportioned out to each of the tribes. Now, one of the things that we'll notice that's kind of interesting is that it seems like there's special favor that will be shown to Judah in the south and to the two sons of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. And of course, Manasseh is only a half tribe because the other half of Manasseh has already settled to the east of Canaan. So Manasseh and Ephraim in the north, Judah in the south seem to already have preferential land proportions before the rest of the land is divided out by lot. And we'll see that in just a few minutes. Now, one of the things that we have to be reminded of all the way through is that the Levites are not going to get any of this land. The reason is because the Levites have been set apart as a very unique tribe. It is their responsibility to be the representatives of man to God and God to man. They are the ones who are going to be offering sacrifices and offerings on behalf of the people. They are going to be given specific towns, as we'll see a little bit later in the reading, but they are not given a section of land like the other tribes. Their inheritance is simply their service to God, and they should feel honored by that. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that Moses was so confused when there was a rebellion from some of those Levitical clans way back in the wilderness wanderings, because he thought, why would you rebel? Why are you wanting more power or more authority when God has already set you apart as a very special group of people? We saw Korah and Dathan and Abiram rebelling and ultimately God destroying them, but Moses saying, appreciate what you have. And so now as they've entered the land after these years and the land is being portioned out for each of the tribes, Levites are mentioned every time land is being portioned as being a very special tribe to God because of their special function. Now, in the reading, it starts out with some very descriptive details of the tribes on the east of the Jordan River. You know, those 2.5 tribes that are settling over there that we've already talked about and read about. But it's fascinating that there is so much detail about where their property is, where the property lines are, and don't miss this, specifically where the cities of refuge will be. And again, we'll talk more about cities of refuge a little bit later. But sometimes you may wonder, how do the people know who draw maps, the maps that you often find in the back of a Bible or on a display somewhere? How do the people know exactly where the tribe's land was? Wow, all you have to do is read the reading we've read today, and you'll see how it's very detailed. Property lines are very detailed and specifically set, probably so that there'll be no disagreements, so there'll be no arguments about it. Everybody knows exactly where his land begins and where his land ends. And this is the way all the tribes are going to be able to settle, have a fair allotment of land, and know who they are and where their property is. Now, there is no inheritance for the Levites, so as I mentioned, we'll talk about the towns that are given to them in just a minute. But Judah, as I mentioned earlier, is given a special portion of land in the south, and more specifically than that, Caleb. Remember, Caleb was one of the two spies, Joshua and Caleb, who gave a positive report of the land. And Moses told Caleb at that time that he was going to let him have a special part of that land where he was standing at that time the promise was made. And I want to reiterate the reading today on page 330 under the section Caleb Requests Hebron. This is very important. And notice the attitude of Caleb all the way through this. Now the men of Judah approached Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know that the Lord said to Moses, the man of God at Kadesh Barnea, about you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land. And I brought him back a report according to my convictions. But my brothers who went up with me made the hearts of the people melt with fear. I, however, followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. So on that day Moses swore to me, the land on which you have walked will be your inheritance and that of your children forever. Why? Because you have followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. Now then, just as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said this to Moses, while Israel moved about in the desert. So here I am today. I love this part. 85 years old. I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I am just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Now give me this hill country that the Lord promised me that day. You yourself heard then that the Anakites were there, and their cities were large and fortified. But the Lord helping me, I will drive them out just as he said. Caleb says, 45 years have passed. I'm 85 years old, and I'm just as strong, and I'm just as ready to fight today as I was then. Why can he be so confident? Because he believed then, and he believes now, that the Lord is the one who will give victory. So God is rewarding Caleb, not just for that positive report, but for the fact that Caleb believes in him, trusts in him wholeheartedly, and God is rewarding that with a special piece of land, not only for Caleb, but for the tribe of Judah in the south. Also, we see a special land laid out for the two sons of Joseph, as I mentioned earlier. After that, the rest of the land is going to be divided by lot. But we also see in this section the inheritance is finally given to Zelophehad's daughters. These were the women that had gone to Moses and said, "We don't have any men in our family. We don't have any sons born to our father." And so Moses says that these daughters, as long as they keep their marriages within the tribe, can have a portion of land as well. And this promise of Moses is remembered, and Zelophehad's daughters are recipients of a piece of land as well. Joshua encourages Joseph's sons as they settle in the north, and all of the tribes seem to be then preparing for the rest of the distribution of the land that we'll read about tomorrow. It seems like a lot of tedious reading, but don't miss these nice little nuggets in here where God is constantly saying, I'm taking care of my people, I'm rewarding those who've been faithful to me, and I will always be your God, and I will always be faithful to you. God is remembering a promise he made long before to Abraham. God never forgets his promises. He is a promise-making, promise-keeping God. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.